Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're going to puncture that totally idealized Instagram-perfect version of early retirement. You know the exact images I'm talking about, right? Endless beaches, clinking cocktail glasses, absolutely zero stress. But when we actually dig into the direct experiences of folks who have successfully left the workforce decades ahead of schedule, a completely different, honestly much more complex picture emerges. Retiring at 50 isn't just about, figuring out your taxes and healthcare. It fundamentally rewires your entire psychological and social world. And if you aren't prepared for those hidden traps, they can completely derail your golden years.
Right out of the gate, you're going to hit this massive hurdle. The moment you achieve early retirement, you face immediate judgment and, frankly, a lot of confusion from society. When you step out of the traditional rat race at 50, people are going to give you some really strange looks. They'll just assume you either won the lottery, got a massive inheritance, or that you're just plain crazy. Suddenly, you become this total outlier. And the most common kind of accusatory question you're going to hear is, what do you do with yourself all day? Leaving the workforce early means stepping totally out of sync with the rest of the working world. And let me tell you, that friction is very real.
To unpack exactly how to navigate this, we'll be covering 5 key areas today. First, the early retirement illusion. Second, the social isolation trap. Third, the entrepreneurial itch. Fourth, surviving the identity crisis. And finally, embracing your total freedom.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the early retirement illusion, expectation versus reality.
On day 1 of retirement, your expectation is probably that you'll be hanging out, traveling, and relaxing with people your own age. But the reality? Retiring in your 50s means your actual peers are right in the middle of their peak earning years. They're busy paying for college, sweating over big corporate presentations, and just generally grinding away at their careers. Every single time you try to make plans, their work gets in the way. So who actually has the free time to hang out with you all day? Well, it turns out you're going to find yourself gravitating toward a much older demographic. People in their 60s and 70s, whose kids are out of the house and who are already retired. The good news here? Our source notes that these older retirees are incredibly fun, but it is definitely a demographic shift you need to be prepared for.
That natural shift in who actually has free time leads us directly into Section 2, the social isolation trap. Seriously, where did everyone go?
Let's look at how your social ties literally degrade over time. When you leave your job, those regular work happy hours and daily lunches, they stop completely. You very quickly realize that a lot of those work friends were really just friends of circumstance. Then, even your weekend golf or fishing buddies become way harder to pin down, mostly because they're exhausted from their work week. And finally, a lot of early retirees decide to downsize or move to a cheaper location to make their savings stretch. Our source, for example, moved to a property on a mountain in Spain. When you make a move like that, your old neighborhood ties sever completely. These factors just compound on each other drastically, and they can leave you totally isolated if you aren't paying attention.
So, the absolute crucial takeaway here is that you have to actively seek out new communities. You literally cannot wait for them to come to you. Our source shared this incredibly amusing anecdote about his 80-year-old mother. She was marveling at the daytime crowd, saying it seems like nobody works anymore because the local grocery store was absolutely packed at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. And honestly, that's the secret. There is this whole hidden world of people who work from home, have flexible schedules, or are also retired. You just have to intentionally put yourself out there during those daytime hours to find your new daytime friends. Join a club, find a daytime pickleball league, or just become a regular at local daytime spots.
But okay, let's say you've got your new social circle totally figured out. That still doesn't solve the internal psychological conflict, which brings us to Section 3, the entrepreneurial itch, the urge to keep working. Look, if you had the intense drive to retire at 50, you almost certainly have an entrepreneurial spirit, right? You've got an active mind that's always looking to optimize. You might assume that drive just flips off the day you retire. It absolutely doesn't. Our source shares this great irony about his own YouTube channel. And AI predicted his channel should bring in around $2,000 a month based on his subscriber count. But instead, it makes about $200. Why? Because he intentionally refuses to treat it like a demanding job. He doesn't post on a strict schedule, he literally just does it for fun. And this perfectly illustrates the mindset you absolutely need to maintain. Because the real danger here is what's known as the one more year syndrome, or the one more project trap. When you suddenly have an abundance of free time, you start brainstorming activities to fill your days. Flipping houses, buying rental properties, writing a book, or starting a YouTube channel. Now, these all sound like fantastic hobbies, but they can very dangerously and very quickly morph right back into creating a stressful job for yourself, which is the exact thing you just worked so hard to escape.
There is absolutely no rule against making money in retirement, obviously, but you have to be fiercely protective of your peace and ensure your new hobbies don't quietly become a brand new 9-to-5 obligation.
Now, protecting your peace internally is one thing, but dealing with the outside world brings us to Section 4, Surviving the Identity Crisis. What do you do?
Believe it or not, there's a profound embarrassment and stigma associated with achieving something we basically all dream of. And the younger you are when you retire, the harder this identity crisis hits. Picture this. You're at a party with working peers, and someone asks the classic question, "So, what do you do?" The honest answer is simply, "I'm retired." But because of the assumptions of unearned privilege, the assumption that you didn't work hard or just got lucky, a lot of early retirees actually panic. They soften the blow by lying. They'll say, "Oh, I'm on a sabbatical," or "I'm in between things right now." Sometimes they'll even just state their old profession. It's totally a defense mechanism to avoid making other people uncomfortable.
But hey, this explainer is all about giving you the tools to thrive, not hide. So, the crucial point is that you must confidently own your early retirement status. You got to mentally prepare for that party interaction so you don't panic. When Bob asks what you do, you look him right in the eye and say, "I'm retired, Bob. You want to go play golf tomorrow?" And when Bob inevitably sighs and says he has to work, you just politely reply, "Oh, wow, that's too bad." It's humorous, it's maybe a tiny bit smug, but it immediately establishes your reality without a single apology. It essentially forces you to shed your old corporate identity and fully embrace the good life you have genuinely earned.
And that perfectly sets up our final and perhaps most daunting challenge of leaving the workforce. Section 5, Embracing your total freedom. Filling the daily void.
You see, freedom is amazing. We all want it. But having no job also means having absolutely zero structure. When you're used to morning commutes, endless meetings, and strict corporate routines, waking up to a completely blank calendar can induce massive anxiety. Every single morning starts with this simple but kind of terrifying question, what do you plan on doing today? When the entire day is open, and all those segmented, safe routines of your past working life dry up, filling those hours purposefully literally becomes your greatest daily challenge.
But there is a somewhat radical yet highly effective solution for folks who struggle with this transition. You need to proactively inject artificial structure into your day. If you are a super career-driven person, treat your early retirement exactly like a new career. Schedule it. Take time to thoroughly plan your vacations, plan a detailed meal schedule. You can even go as far as putting intimacy on the calendar. By actively planning things out and creating a new, customized routine from scratch, you give yourself the exact structure needed to smoothly transition into infinite free time without feeling utterly lost.
And once you establish that structure, you earn the time to invent entirely new ways to have fun. Our source provides a wonderfully absurd example of this. Living on that mountain in Spain, he spent an entire day just laying out rocks to create his own DIY 9-hole bucket golf course. He affectionately calls it alpine golf. It spans a full kilometer down the mountain. He uses oversized plastic clubs and pickleballs, and the best part? The 9th hole finishes right at his house, perfectly situated so he can immediately grab a cold beer from the fridge. It's ridiculous, it's creative, and it is the absolute perfect embodiment of what early retirement should be, giving yourself the total freedom to invent your own fun.
Which leaves us with this final, vital thought. Retiring at 50 strips away your old friends, your old routines, and your old corporate identity. It leaves you with this massive void. But if you actively plan for the mental hurdles, you get to fill that void with whatever brings you genuine joy. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative question to ponder. When you finally leave the rat race behind and the calendar is completely blank, what will your alpine golf be? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep planning for that totally free future.